So you're losing faith in this paper that's in your wallet. If you go to the bank and you ask them, they're just going to give you more paper. So you're thinking, well, I got to get rid of this paper. What can I buy? I can buy gold, I can buy silver, I can buy real estate, I can buy new cars, I can buy Bitcoin. It's just another tool. Among all of those options, can you move your gold and silver, or are you going to get checked at customs? You can move your Bitcoin because Bitcoin exists everywhere.
Prepare for shock and awe. Gold, silver, copper, and zinc. This 30-cent a share company could be looking at life-changing gains. Even Resource Capital Inc., a $1 billion private equity fund made up of expert mining analysts and investors, just quietly took an 18% stake in the company. Learn more at CrushTheStreet.com/hardassets.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I'm here with Dave Scotese. He's with litmocracy.blogspot.com. You can follow him there. He's an expert on Bitcoin, and something that goes along with Bitcoin, which we're going to talk today about also, is freedom. First of all, Dave, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Dave, can you give everyone a little bit of an update on what is going on with Bitcoin? We've saw it go up to 400 and then come back. I mean, it went a while ago, it was up to 1,000 and back down to 100. And then it had another move. And each time it moves, it feels like there's more credibility that is given to it by the mainstream. More and more people see it as a viable option. So can you give us a little idea of what is going on with the Bitcoin price?
Well, I think what happens with anything you can buy or invest in, let's say, when people see that the price is moving around, it's a signal. The price is going up because people are interested in it. Oh, well, if people are interested in it, then I think I want to be interested in it too. And so you start researching it, and it turns out Bitcoin's a pretty good idea. So anybody that gets, driven into that curiosity place is going to decide, well, not anybody, but enough people decide, hey, I want to get into this, and so they start buying. So the price going up causes more price going up, and that's traditionally how you get a bubble. And we've seen that a few times with Bitcoin.
It does go up and down quite a bit. Are you optimistic that it'll go back to 1,000 and higher, or are you a buyer at these prices, or are you hesitant?
I am optimistic, and my strategy, because of the volatility, is I'm just going to profit off the volatility. And the way you do that is you say, I want my holdings of this investment to be at this certain dollar amount. So if the price goes up, then I have to sell a little. If the price goes down, then I have to buy a little. In order to do that, you have to have your pool of cash, because when the price goes down and it keeps going down, you got to keep buying and keep buying. Well, if Bitcoin went down to $5, I would probably run out of cash. But at the same time, I would I would own all the Bitcoin. Well, not quite that much, but there's enough people doing that. I can't see that happening. It could get down to like 100 maybe, but that means a lot of people that have a lot of Bitcoin decided that, it's no good anymore.
What's going on in the infrastructure of Bitcoin that is causing it to just be more in demand? Do you have any updated news on what's going on in the Bitcoin community?
I'm not sure about whether those are connected. I think the recent increases in price are due to somebody was waiting for something to happen. They had a lot of money, and then it happened. If you have a lot of money and you're going to get into an investment, then you overbuy. And you overbuy because you're moving the price, and you push the price way up, and then it's up and it plateaus, and then you start selling off the extra that you bought. So you make a little profit. And if you do that really well, you end up paying for your entire investment just from the profits of pushing the price up too much. And I suspect that's kind of what happened. But your question, you want to tie it to infrastructure. There are things going on in, like I'm signed up for the Bitcoin developer list, so I see the emails go by, and they're talking about scaling solutions like Lightning, which is a off-chain way. You make a bunch of transactions that allow you to back out if your trading partner screws you. So either one of you is protected because you can shove a bunch of stuff onto the blockchain and you're safe. But if you let it ride, you keep trading back and forth, and it doesn't have to be on the blockchain. It's a separate system just between those two people. Well, that's lightning, and I shouldn't have gone off on that tangent.
No problem.
But as far as infrastructure go, it's the block size has been getting troublesome. Let's say there's somebody out there who's doing scaling testing or spam testing or attacking the network, as some people like to call it. But the guy's upfront about it. He says, I'm pushing a lot of transactions onto the blockchain because I want to make sure that whoever's developing Bitcoin technology figures out a way to avoid this bad behavior that I'm doing from causing a problem. So it's like white hat hacking. He's kind of doing that, and I think that's a benefit. It's pushing everybody along to say, figure out something to do because people are going to get more and more interested in Bitcoin. The transaction rate's going to go up, and the blocks are not going to be big enough. We got to solve that. So they're pushing to solve that.
A lot of people who've stumbled upon Bitcoin, especially in the early stages, were concerned about the dollar, and they've come across this free market solution. The dollar, of course, is a centralized currency ran by the Fed, the government, and people are concerned that Bitcoin could be centralized. At least that's some of the concern out there. Do you see this as a problem?
It's partially a problem, but the problem with being afraid of centralization is that centralization itself isn't bad. That's like saying monopoly is bad. Well, no, it's the effects. What are the bad effects of monopoly? Well, whoever holds the monopoly can raise the prices as high as they want, and then everybody is screwed. Well, that feature of monopoly defeats monopoly, because if they push the price too high, their monopoly breaks. The oil cartel is a good example of that. There's cheaters all over the oil cartel, and when the price of oil starts getting too high, they start cheating, and that brings it back down. So centralization works the same way. The bad thing about centralization is it gives a target to the people that want to attack the system. So if there are people threatened by Bitcoin and they want to attack it, then they wait till it's centralized and then they go attack that central point. But there's lots of people that aren't going to be in that central point. So the central will be destroyed, but all of the people on the outside can still use Bitcoin. There's no way to destroy that idea. So I'm not really worried about centralization that much. And that vulnerability to attack is the main concern of centralization. And to me, it's like, okay, all of the miners consolidate into one. So now there's one miner and they can do a 51% attack, et cetera. Okay, well, we just make up a different Bitcoin system, and they wasted all their capital buying hashing power for an algorithm that's not going to work anymore because people don't like them.
Okay, Dave, so there are 21 million Bitcoins that'll ever be mined. So there's a finite number out there, which is a safety thing when it comes to supply and demand. Obviously, dollars have an infinite supply. And the reason why people like Bitcoin is that it's finite. It's similar to gold, where there's only a certain amount that ever could be mined. But my question is, how is Bitcoin standing among other digital currencies? Because this is something that I've had my concern with, is that there could be an infinite amount of competing digital currencies that can come after Bitcoin. And unlike gold can't be competed with. There's not another gold out there.
Well, there's silver.
Right. No, I was gonna say there's other commodities, but there's not an infinite amount. You can't just go on your computer and just create a new Word document in an infinite amount of times, or you can do that with technology. So, anyways, I just want to get your thoughts on that. How strong is Bitcoin within the market?
The effort it takes limits the amount of Bitcoin. I mean, we don't have all 21 million Bitcoins yet. we have to wait, and that's programmed into how Bitcoin works. You got me thinking about the gold and the silver, because gold is more valuable than silver, partially because there's more silver than gold. And so Bitcoin would work the same way. There's more Bitcoin than there's more of all of the other cryptocurrencies than there is of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is going to be a little bit more valuable than all of the other cryptocurrencies if you munge them all together like that. And that comes down to fungibility, which is, can you distinguish between a little bit of gold and some other little bit of gold? No, they're the same. But you can distinguish between a little bit of gold and a little bit of silver. Because they're distinguishable, we can't munge them together, and so we consider all of the gold as gold and all of the silver as silver, all of the Bitcoin as Bitcoin, and all of the Litecoin as Litecoin. And then you have Dogecoin. Well, Dogecoin is not Litecoin, and Litecoin is not Dogecoin. So there's a supply of Dogecoin and a supply of Litecoin, and et cetera, and that list goes on and on. But then the question is, well, how hard is it to get, and how in demand is it? And Bitcoin's the front runner. It's ahead of the pack. It's the big name. And so, of course, it's going to be more popular and more recognized. And the market bears that out when you look at support on exchanges. And, how many companies that accept Bitcoin also accept some other cryptocurrency? Well, if we're lucky, 80, 90%, but I don't know what that number is. It's certainly not 100, and it never will be, because Bitcoin is the front runner. It's the one that gets into people's heads first.
Dave, so when it comes to Bitcoin, what do you see it being primarily used for? What does the future look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Is it going to be something that just is used primarily for the black market, or is it going to be continued to be implemented in the mainstream? And partially the question is the government going to try to crack down on it?
Wow. Well, I can't predict the future. I have a couple guesses about the 10 to 20 years in the future question. One is that large financial institutions are going to figure out that they don't have to trust each other, and they don't have to bear counterparty risk. They don't have to rely on governments to enforce, collection or start wars to get their gold back and all that stuff. They can rely on the consensus that Bitcoin develops. And if that is the case, then Bitcoin might turn into, it might replace the Bank of International Settlements. I don't know. People can look up what that is. I don't want to go into try to describe it. So that's one thing, is it could replace the core thing that central banks currently use to transfer value between each other. The other possibility for 10 to 20 years down the road is that we do have methods of scaling Bitcoin so everybody can use it, which leads into the next question. What would they be using it for? If you have a task to be done, say translation, right? So you have this text that's in Italian, and it's fantastic because you know Italian, but you don't want to spend the time translating. You want to find somebody who can, and you don't live in a place where people speak Italian. Well, get somebody from Italy to do it, right? How are you going to pay them? Well, unless you have a trusted middleman, that's going to be difficult. Well, if you have Bitcoin, it's not. Just send them some Bitcoin, they send you some translation, you goes back and forth between the two of you, and you solve that problem. So that's getting services from non-local sources and paying them in Bitcoin. It cuts out the middleman, which cuts out all kinds of options for government interference, which leads to the black market. But it also cuts out all kinds of problems with having to trust third parties like PayPal or your bank, who could prevent you from doing a wire or charge you exorbitant fees. Bitcoin could charge you exorbitant fees too. That's true. That's a market of competition between all of the miners. And if you don't like their fees, then you can mine yourself and, get together with a lot of people who will contribute hashing power. And every now and then you guys can find a block. Hey, we find a block every 2 days. So the maximum amount of time for me to pay you is 2 days because our block's guaranteed to have our transactions in it. So, and that's always open.
Dave, governments around the world have seen their countries have seen their currencies hit record lows, all-time lows. The currencies around the world are just a disaster. The dollar's actually seen some strength lately. And the problem is when these governments see their currencies collapse, people try to exit them in a major way. And we've seen that in Argentina with their peso, the Argentinian peso, and the government cracked down and try to keep everyone from being able to take money out of the banks, take money out of the country, and they resorted to Bitcoin. Do you see this being an answer to a lot of these global currency problems? Do you see Bitcoin being the solution for currencies around the world and even the US dollar for when we do have this major monetary crisis, which is already starting in many parts of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm thinking you're losing faith in this paper that's in your wallet. If you go to the bank and you ask them, they're just going to give you more paper. So you're thinking, well, I got to get rid of this paper. What can I buy? I can buy gold, I can buy silver, I can buy real estate, I can buy new cars, I can buy Bitcoin. It's just another tool. Among all of those options, I would think cars depreciate, real estate probably has a pretty stable value, but where? Are you going to buy the real estate, in this country where the government is printing money because it's over indebted, or are you going to buy something that you can move? And can you move your gold and silver, or are you going to get checked at customs? You can move your Bitcoin because Bitcoin exists everywhere. When you own some Bitcoin, everybody on the planet knows that you own it, because you have the secret that you need to spend it. So it's like one of the most excellent options if you run into that problem.
Okay, Dave, you say that the government is a criminal organization. How can you say that? I'll play devil's advocate here. How can you say that? Well,
look, people don't find it acceptable if you go to your neighbor's house and you say, I mowed your lawn, so you got to give me $50. That's ridiculous. But the government does stuff all the time, and then they say, look, you people have to pay for this, so here's the tax bill and whatever. And if you're like, well, I don't want you to go and bomb people in Iraq or spy on my neighbors through their internet connection or, whatever. I don't want you doing that stuff, so I'm not going to pay for it. Well, they're going to come and throw you in jail. That's criminal. You can't just tell people this is how you have to live your life, and if you don't, you go to jail. We can't do that. Why can the government do it? And people cheer. They're like, oh yeah, we have laws and people break them, and so we throw them in prison. Yay! That's ridiculous. If I made up laws and then people broke them and I threw people in prison for it, I would be punished. People would hate me. Well, why don't we have that feeling toward the government? Well, there's some kind of brainwashing going on there. That's why.
Dave, I want to first of all thank you for coming on the show with me today. Can you just share with us a little bit about what people will find if they visit you at litmocracy.blogspot.com?
Oh, wow. My blog is full of philosophy and freedom, and there's a couple posts about not being scammed by the federal government. Most people don't know this, but I wanted to plug Pete Hendrickson's site, Lost Horizons, because he explains that most people don't owe the income tax. Now, if you're afraid that maybe you owe it, you'll probably pay it because the agency that enforces the tax laws is really vicious. But if you can figure it out and work with them and show them, look, I don't owe the tax, then then you don't pay it. That's the boat I'm in.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today. If people want to reach out to you, definitely go check out litmocracy.blogspot.com and just follow Dave and his work. Dave, thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Ken.